My Lords, oral questions will now commence. Please can those asking supplementary questions keep them no longer than 30 seconds and confined to 2 points, and I ask that Ministers' answers are also brief. I call Lord Berkeley to ask the first oral question.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
The Minister, Baroness Veer of Norbiton.
My Lords, HS2 Limited and East West Rail Limited are currently separate from Network Rail and are delivering important additions to our rail network. The Williams-Shapps plan for rail is clear that they will retain their current roles and will work closely with Great British Railways as it takes over responsibilities for integration.
My Lords, I'm grateful to the Minister for that clarification, but it does seem to me that the statement in the Williams report, I quote, "This will bring together the rail network under one natural national leadership," is not correct. The report also states, and I quote again, "There will be a new focus to deal with escalating costs, gold plating and over-specification," which clearly applies mainly to HS2 as the worst offender. So can the Minister explain why there are plans to remove funding for the Northern Powerhouse Rail and give it to the bottomless pit of HS2?
My Lords, there are no such plan. But in reference to the Noble Lord's earlier statements about the HS2 and East West Rail being separate infrastructure managers, there are actually 13 different infrastructure managers already on the rail network. And obviously GBR will be working very closely with them, as indeed will it have to with Transport for Wales and indeed for ScotRail. GBR will be set up to collaborate, and that's what we want to see it doing.
Lord Snape.
My Lords, bearing in mind that the White Paper recently issued stressed the importance of a guiding mind so far as the railway industry is concerned in future, is it not completely illogical to leave out HS2 and East West Rail being the two major construction projects so far as the railway industry is concerned? I mean, surely there will be considerable involvement of both these projects as far as the railway industry is concerned. Does the Minister not remember John Juner's famous phrase in the Sunday Express, "Who's in charge of the clattering train"?
Sadly, I don't remember that from the Daily Express. However, on the Noble Lord's first point, it is very important, and one of the words he said was absolutely critical, and that is in construction, because it is indeed the case that HS2 and East West Rail are both in construction at the moment, and they will be for some time, and so therefore there is ample time, as both of these become operational railways, for them to collaborate with GBR to make sure that all of their services interlink.
Lord Mackay of Clashfern.
My Lords, I would like to ask my noble friend, what is the place of Scotland in this great British railway plan?
There is a place for Scotland in Great Britain. The Scottish Government will continue to exercise their current powers and to be democratically accountable for them. Great British Railways will continue to own the infrastructure in Scotland, as Network Rail, for example, does now, and the Government will, of course, explore options with Transport Scotland to enable the railway in Scotland to benefit from the reforms on the wider network of Great Britain.
Baroness Jones of Milscombe.
If HS2 is going to be managed separately, can the Government guarantee that any of its cost overruns, whether in construction or in operation, will not see a bailout from wider rail network funds, that they will be responsible for their own overruns?
Well, I think the Noble Lady has just answered her own question, in that she did state that HS2 will be separate from Great British Railways. That it is indeed the case. But of course, at the moment, in any event, HS2, as she pointed out, is under construction. It will be a while before it is an operating railway, and then it will work closely with GBR.
Baroness Randerson.
Lords, the Williams-Shapps report promises welcome expansion and better coordination of the railways. And the Government also says it's committed to levelling up the north. So can the noble lady, the Minister, explain to us why the proposed new timetable from East Coast Main Line halves the number of trains from Newcastle to Manchester via Durham and Darlington, and also cuts 1/3 of the trains to London from Berwick and Darlington? In what sense, my lords, is this expansion and levelling up?
Actually, as it happens, I had a conversation with the leaders, all Northern leaders, yesterday as we met as the Northern Transport Acceleration Council, and they did raise this issue. And of course, the issue is one of capacity, because it is the case that there are more services, for example, between Newcastle to London. So we have heard the pleas from various areas of the north in terms of the timetabling, and of course we are taking that away and doing what we can. But of course this is one of the reasons why we do need Great British Railways, because timetabling is fiendishly complicated. We need to make sure that local areas are heard and that they get the services they deserve.
Lord Moylan.
My Lords, will my noble friend take this opportunity to rebut the current rumours that Northern Powerhouse Rail is going to be scrapped?
My noble friend should not read too much into media reports on the front page. I think it was of the Yorkshire Post. The government continues to consider all options for Northern Powerhouse Rail as part of the integrated rail plan. And once the integrated rail plan is published, we will work with Transport for the North to finalise a business case for Northern Powerhouse Rail. And this will need to be consistent with the IRP's policy and the funding framework.
Would the noble lady please confirm the east-west rail link, certainly between Oxford and Bletchley, needs to be electrified, and it needs to be electrified from the outset because of the heavy freight traffic from Southampton to the West Coast Main Line passing through Bletchley. And it will be a crying shame if electrification were postponed until after the passenger service started.
The case for electrification of East West Rail is currently being considered. A review is being undertaken by EWR Co, looking at all of the options, including full electrification along the whole route, as well as the various options for partial electrification, including battery, electric, hybrid, rolling stock.
Lord McCall of Dulwich.
Thank you. My Lords, would the Minister tell the House what proportion of the existing railway will be used in the building of this east-west extension, and what is the latest estimate of the overall cost?
Well, I'm grateful to my noble friend for advance notice of this question, because I too had to get my head around how the existing track and the new track all works together. So there are 3 connection stages. So the first one will rely on existing track, which will be upgraded, and then the second 2 will be either small sections of existing track or mostly new track. The cost of the connection stage 1 is currently £1.288 billion. We do not know the cost for future connection stages at this moment in time, as of course the new track has not really yet been fully scoped.
Lord Rosser.
Yes, assuming that the Northern Powerhouse Rail project, HS3, is not going to be scrapped, as has been suggested in some of the media, could the noble lady, the Minister, confirm that HS3 will be part of the integrated railway under Great British Railways in the same way as other private companies contracted to run the trains for the services and fares that Great British Railways sets?
Goodness, I think we are probably a little early in the game to be discussing those sorts of arrangements, but I have answered the question, I think, about Northern Powerhouse Rail. The integrated rail plan will be published soon.
My Lords, is it not to slay the urban myth that HS2 will not significantly cut travel times. The London to Birmingham travel time will be reduced by a third, 30 minutes. The London to Manchester time halved to only around an hour. In Japan, growth is much more evenly distributed between the cities because of the Shinkansens. They are not content with existing speeds, but are building new lines. Isn't that the global standard that we need to aspire to?
Well, my noble friend is quite right, but HS2 is not just about speed, as I need to so often mention in your Lordship's House. It is also, as my noble friend mentions, about bringing our regions closer together and delivering the capacity that our transport network absolutely needs. HS2 will give us a step change in capacity, whilst almost halving the time it takes to travel between our largest cities. And if we were to do that by refreshing our existing railways, it would cause decades of inconvenience and disruption for passengers.
My Lords, the time allowed for this question has elapsed.